Okay, let's just start by the story of how you got into running.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. And you've been such a great friend and such a net positive on my life. And so this is awesome.
Man, that's if you're going to get a compliment, net positive is a good compliment.
No, 100%. Like I maybe the net is funny too. I always look at like anything in life though is like, are things net positive or are they net negative? Because, and I'm not to say that there was like negative stuff, but like, I'll give an example. Like, even so, like, we recently got a dog and he's awesome and he's amazing. And I mean, granted, net positive in my life, but there's challenges, right? Like I unfortunately have to leave a little earlier today to go check on him. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but when things are net positive, I think it's a good way to look at it because I think it's way better than just looking at life as like always positive because there's going to be downtimes and it's good to acknowledge that sometimes, but things are net positive is good. Not to say that I've had negative stuff with you, but I use that terminology a lot because like even all the time I tell my athletes like who I coach with running, it's like if you have bad runs, you're going to have them every once in a while, but on a net standpoint, is it going positive? And is your training a net positive? Because that also means that it's okay to have bad days and it's okay to, have things that are struggle. And it's okay every once in a while for it not to be perfect and not to be okay. So that's why I use that terminology.
I love that. I am not at all surprised that you have thought processes behind the language that you're using in that too. Okay, so let's jump into it then. Yeah. Tell me the story of how you got into running.
The actual question you asked me. Yeah. So as you can see, there's the tangent there too. So I think I had a very untraditional kind of background with running too. And I love that because I think with running, you don't have to have extraordinarily athletic gifts or talents when born. And when I grew up, I had very much the mindset that you had to be born with those things, right? When I was in high school, and I would see like all of like my friends out there on the football team and just crushing it at varsity sports. Like my thought process was like, wow, it's like so awesome that they were born like athletic and born with all this stuff. And because for me, that was not the case. I was not born athletic. I mean, I didn't play any organized sports in high school except for golf. And that's arguably a sport. And I can say that because I play golf. But that was the only organized sport I played because I was just always laughed at every pickup game. People would throw footballs to me because of the way that I like looked funny catching the football. Like I was just not athletic. And I thought, well, because I wasn't born this way, I shouldn't even try. And that was the mindset that I had in my entire life. And one of those things included was, growing up, I was diagnosed with ADHD because I was super crazy kid in class all the time. And
when you say crazy, what do you mean by that?
I'd be in like kindergarten and I just, the teacher would be teaching something and I would just start screaming something out loud. I would like take books, I'd throw them. I'd be very impulsive, like just doing just a bunch of stuff. Like the first thought that'll come to my mind, I would act immediately and be way more rambunctious than the other kids. And so my parents were like, okay, this is clearly a problem. So then they took me to, the doctor. I got diagnosed with ADHD and I was put on Adderall. The reason why I bring that up is because it's that same belief that I had with the athleticism is like, I was born with a different brain. And therefore, because I have ADHD, like that's the way it's going to be. I can't be someone who can be focused. I can't be someone who can be less impulsive. But even from the Adderall perspective, I was like, I was born someone who can't be a functional person in society unless I take this drug.
Wow.
And that was the thing. And there was a bunch of other stacked beliefs that kind of happened with that too, because I wasn't confident. And then I tried alcohol for the first time, but then the belief was, okay, I wasn't born confident, so I might as well keep drinking so I can be confident. And all of these beliefs was just this fixed mindset. And that's, I think, a belief or a thought process that a lot of people can have growing up. And, whether it's society or anything, I mean, we're kind of taught, it's like, oh, if you're bad at math in school, maybe you shouldn't do things that are in math, or, like if, you're someone who's great at science, maybe you should pursue something in science, right? It's either you have it or you don't. And that was very much my belief systems. And, because of that, I deep down inside, I thought I couldn't be the best person I could be without taking substances, Adderall. And then, going to college, it was like cocaine and marijuana and like a bunch of other different drugs, because I always had this deep rooted insecurity that I wasn't enough and I could only be enough if I took some outside substance. So
did you at that time, thank you for sharing that, first of all.
Of course.
At that time, did you know that that was what you were trying to solve for and going for those things? Like, I'm trying to be enough? Like, could you self-identify as that? Or was it more just like a impulsive pleasure-seeking thing?
Yeah, definitely had no like kind of thought that I was doing this to be that person. Okay. Like I had just this is all like a subconscious thing and very hindsight 2020. And at the time I was like, oh, this is what I have to do to be where I want to be in life. And because like, if you asked me at the time, I said, well, there's no other way. Like, there's no other way I could talk to girls if I'm not drunk. There's no other way I could go for this career on Wall Street that I wanted to if I didn't take cocaine. Like, there's no way I could, crush it at school and get these good grades to get a good job if I didn't take Adderall. And that was my belief. Like, so if you ask me, it wasn't trying to mask that, but deep down, it was because I had this insecurity in myself.
Wow.
The only time that became, or I should say the first time that it became really self-evident was, whenever you make choices like that out of insecurity, you can probably get by in the short term, but in the long term, things will crumble and things will fall away. And so what started to happen was, at the end of college, I got a job at Wall Street, a hedge fund, ended up not being with that job anymore. I had a girlfriend who I thought I was going to marry for, I was dating her for 4 or 5 years. She left me. I moved back in with my parents. I didn't have much friends at the time. Like, everything just kind of fell apart. And so I remember being in the floor of my childhood room, looking up at the ceiling, seeing all the pieces gone in my life and realizing that that was all a product of me. And that's when I realized that something was wrong and started to realize that there was probably something deeper behind this. And one of the big things that kind of came with that was kind of around the same time, I went to the doctors, because when you take Adderall, you have to go to the doctor to get a checkup to make sure everything's okay.
Sure.
And the doctor was doing some tests and everything, and he was like, hey, you're 22 years old. You're an adult now. And, around this time, we usually see people who have been taking Adderall since they were kids, like, be able to wean off this and function in society. And like, almost immediately as they said this, I felt the anxiety thing like build up in me. And I said, no, I need to take it. And that in my head was like, whoa, like, I remember being like, you're addicted to that. Like, that was an addictive response right there to not even being open to the idea of potentially weaning off this thing. And then, so that was kind of like the first crack. And then being, on that floor, thinking these thoughts, like, that was the time where I realized I was like, something's going on. And I couldn't even self-identify at the time. Like, I didn't know. I just knew something needed to change. And the thing that really helped me to kind of self-identify that was, just doing more research into like psychology and how beliefs are developed. And that's when, I started to untangle some things and realize that it all just came from this deep-seated insecurity of believing that I wasn't good enough and believing that I was born someone who wasn't good enough and I needed things. So to go back to the running stuff, where this first all started.
Okay, no, hold on. We'll get into yeah. Don't jump too far ahead too fast. It's such a fascinating story,
Thank
Joe.
you.
And I think one of the things that makes it so fascinating is, like, you're a friend. I know you well. I've known you well for years now, and like, I did not know you at this stage of your life. And it's just so wild to me, the transformation that it seems like you've undergone internally and externally to be the person that you are today. It's just wild, man. Because I'm like, man, I wish we could have a before Joe just so people could see how different it is. Because, do you experience it that way? Has it been radical life transformation?
Oh, night and day. Like, because obviously we'll get into the story and everything, but like, if you told me that like right now, I'd be, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm more so saying this from like a standpoint of comparison. Like, I ran like 250 milers, 100 milers, like I coach people to run. If you had told that person on the floor that I'm doing all this right now, I would have like been like, there is 0% chance. Like, there's no, like, even from a standpoint of not even just being successful and happy, but more from a standpoint of like running. Like, I was like, no way. Like, there's like 200 miles, like, no way. And I thank you for that compliment too. But, I think that's kind of the whole ethos of like, what I want to tell people all the time is that who you are born does not define who you will be later in life. And secondly, if you are unhappy with where you're at right now, that doesn't mean you can't change to be that person you want to be. I truly believe that in life, you can be any person you want to be. You can be confident. You can be a business person. You can be someone who's athletic. You can be someone who is a great family person. And even if you're not those things right now, that doesn't matter. What matters is if you're willing to learn and put in the work along the way, you can become that person. And so life is not a matter of like, are you born this way or not? It's a matter of what are the skills, the capabilities, and the mindsets that you need to develop to become that person? And so like, I really appreciate that compliment that you gave too, because it's like, I sit here now and I want to be the example for people to be like, that's where I was and here's where I am now. And the thing that like really got me to believe that was, love it or hate the guy. Like I read Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power, and he starts out the book talking about how he was overweight, homeless, broke, like had no one in his life. And then he makes the jump in the book to he's in a helicopter looking at the highway, like backed up with cars, all trying to go see him speak at a concert. And he's got his wife in the helicopter with him. And in my head, I'm like, what? Like, how? Like, how is that even possible? And so reading that like clicked some things. And so for me, like my whole thing, and I think leaders just in general, leaders are people who you look up to and you aspire to want to be like them.
Yeah.
Right. And so like for me, I think one of the best ways to lead is just to live by example, and people can see that it is possible, because I truly believe that all of us know, and deep down inside, if we see another human being do something, like we have the capabilities to do it ourselves. And even though we might think, oh, I might be born that way or not, if you believe in the human element to adapt, because humans are meant to adapt, we've adapted over years and years and years and years to get better and better and better, whether it's by technology or skill sets or capabilities. If we believe that we can adapt, and if we see someone transform, then we have the ability to do that themselves. So like my whole life has just been about, yeah, like I'm a coach and I teach people how to run, but honestly, like I teach people to become someone they want to be. And like that is kind of where my whole ethos kind of lies.
Man, there's so much in that that's so powerful. One of the things that stands out as a theme that I think is actually a little bit distinctive from other people that I've talked to, it seems like, unfortunately, the story of, man, I was in a really dark spot, drugs and alcohol became super attractive, is a common theme sometimes. However, a lot of times it's, I was quitting on life, right? Like I was becoming lazy. I was becoming complacent. I was just like basically laying down and saying I quit. It almost doesn't sound like that was the case with your use of cocaine and alcohol and things like that. It almost sounds like that was maybe misplaced, but that was the attribution of your ambition almost. Does that feel correct?
Oh, 100%. I mean, because I never had the standpoint of like, been like, what's the point, or like life is worthless or things like that. Like I think deep down, I've always wanted something, and I could never really place what that something was. I thought it was money. Like I really wanted to be a hedge fund owner and like own this hedge fund and make millions and millions of dollars. Like when I first went to college, I wanted to be a movie critic, and I actually like went for journalism. And then someone told me, they were like, you're never going to make any money in journalism. And I was like, really? And they're like, no. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to finance because I want to make as much money as possible. Because I thought that if I made a bunch of money, I'd be super, super happy. And then like, anytime like I've had this like goal, like I've always been like chasing something. And I say something like now I know what it is, but at the time I didn't know what it was. And I was just chasing something. And I thought it was like in money, and I thought it was in, being with as many girls as possible, and like having the most friends and like all this stuff. So like I was in a fraternity trying to chase that side of things. Like I went to a job on Wall Street and like try to make a bunch of money, and I did make a bunch of money. And then I always found that no matter how many like people that I was with, no matter how many friends that I had, no matter how much money I made, I still ended up being miserable. And so being in that spot where I was on the floor, I was like, what is going on here? And that's like the whole crux of the journey, which, I kind of go to. I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but I really found that what I was chasing was fulfillment. Like that's it. Like it was fulfillment. And the best quote on fulfillment is from Tom Bilyeu, who's, he's a guy I look up to really, really well, founder of Quest Nutrition, great guy. But he explains it as fulfillment is how you feel about yourself, even when you're by yourself. And I was like, wow, it's so good, because you're just chasing the feeling of just feeling that deep satisfaction of your life and who you are and the impact that you're making. And that's what I was searching for. And, money is a vessel for that. I think friends can be a vessel for those things. But if you don't like yourself, I think it's deeply impossible to be fulfilled. And that's what was missing for me. Like I had, it spiraled to the point where I didn't have the money, but like when I had the money, when I had the friends, when I had all that stuff, I was missing that part of loving myself. And I truly believe you can't be fulfilled. You can't be a leader. You can't impact other people if you are not loving yourself. And I know it sounds cliche and trite, but I think there's a lot of people who are very successful and they don't deeply like themselves. And I think you miss that fulfillment factor. That's why, like, we see millionaires and billionaires like commit suicide every year. It's because like they have the stuff, but like deep down, there's just something that's they don't appreciate about themselves on a subconscious or even conscious level. And life seems pointless at that point because, you got to love yourself and then, also be fulfilled with that and find the things that lead to that self-love too.
If we were to zoom in on that moment of you staring at the ceiling in your childhood bedroom, it sounds like that was a tipping point moment.
Yeah, that was the one.
If we were to say, like, what are some of the ingredients that go into a breakthrough or a transformation tipping point like that? What were the ingredients that were present there that made it possible for you to, I mean, not even just shift gears, but like change the paradigm entirely?
Yeah, I think the number one ingredient, I think there's two main ingredients. I think the first thing is self-awareness, 100%. Anytime I'm working with an athlete and they come to me and they're saying like, hey, I struggle mentally in these ultra marathons because when I get to like mile 50 in a 100-mile race, like I start to get all these negative thoughts and these barriers. And I always go, great, that's amazing. And they're like, what? Like, what do you mean that's amazing? I was like, you're aware of it. And the self-awareness part is 90% of the issue or 90% of the solution. Because like once you're aware of something, you can fix it. Like, that's why therapy is so good, because therapy helps to like get you aware of certain things and like why certain things exist, right? If you don't know there's a problem, there's no way to solve it. Yeah. So you got to have this self-awareness, right? Because for me at the time, like I thought my problem in life was that I didn't have enough. I didn't have enough money. I didn't have enough friends. I didn't have enough influence. I didn't have enough any of that stuff. And I got more of that, but I wasn't self-aware. And if I was self-aware, I would have realized that the problem was really in my head and about me and my own relationship with myself and my belief system, right? So I think number one, you have to have self-awareness. And the only way that self-awareness I think can happen is the second ingredient, which I think is the most important ingredient, is pain. I think pain is the biggest tool and ingredient for a breakthrough. And I actually learned this from Tony Robbins, and I didn't know it at the time, but this is what was happening at the time, is that when the pain is so great that you hit this point where it's just so overbearing that the pain of change is less than the pain that you're currently feeling right now, you're going to make the change, right? Because most times people don't make the change because the pain of change is so hard, right? If someone wants to quit smoking, like those symptoms of withdrawal are really hard, but like to them, like the pain that they're getting of smoking doesn't set in until they have cancer. So that pain is like really low. And so like at that time, my pain was so high. Like I said, like I didn't have a job, didn't have friends, didn't have a girlfriend. I was alone. And the pain was just so high that it almost like forced me to make some change because it was so much, it was just so omnipresent there. And, I think like a lot of times, like sometimes, and although I'm not a parent, like, I do speak with some parents where they're like, listen, like I just let my kid kind of fail on their own and figure it out because pain is sometimes the greatest teacher, right? I always think about the Ray Dalio quote that just so deeply resonates with me, is that pain plus reflection equals progress. And so notice how like what I said for the first two things, I didn't even put this together until now. Pain, that's the one ingredient. Self-reflection, which takes self-awareness, equals progress. And I think when you have both those things, it's there too. And that's why with like, I think that's why like failure is so good. That's why like even just being in ultra marathons where you're in this like deep pain, different kind of pain, but you like learn so much in there. Like I think like without pain in our lives, like we're never going to learn. And I'm not saying that from like a disciplinary standpoint, but I think pain is the most information rich source ever because it signals to us that something is wrong. And when you can be self-reflective on that pain, that's where you make the change. And so like for me, I think, shout out to Ray, because I guess he articulated in a great way. I think pain and self-awareness, I think are the two ingredients for a breakthrough. And that's what I had in that moment. And, in terms of like, a lot of people ask me, because like the thing that I did the next day that helped me a ton, and I don't know what compelled me to do this. And, I will chalk it up to God, the universe, whatever you believe in, right? Like something told me to like go to the bookstore that day and find some answers. And that's when I picked up, I picked up several books, one of them being Tony's book. And then another one was like a book on yoga. I swear. Yeah. Cause I was like, maybe yoga will help me like, I don't know, figure my life out.
Yeah.
And then that all led me to eventually running down the line and stuff. So, Yeah. I mean, we can go deeper into that, but yeah.
So in terms of life transformation, do you have that moment and then like drugs are a thing of the past?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh.
What does that look like
Well,
for you to like have this initial, like, I'm going to change my life, but then also not it be a snap your fingers thing takes time.
Oh, for sure. And anytime I look at a thing of progress, right? Like we tend to want to think progress is maybe this like straight line up, but I always call like progress like the stock market, right? So if you look at like the S&P 500, like over the years and years and years, it pretty much looks like you got to line up. But then you zoom into events like 2008 and you zoom into events like 2020. If you zoom in, there's like these big lows in there too. But over time, like those lows will correct and go up and basically make this straight line over time. So success is a lot like that. And I feel like at the time when I first started this whole journey of self-discoverment, like I almost like, I guess, try to anticipate it like to be this self-line. So where the running kind of came into it, and this kind of ties back to the answer because I know you mentioned like, you know, you make the decision to change your life. Does it all go away? It's like, no. So my big thing kind of doing all this work was I looked at, okay, what is the lead domino that's going to make everything feel better, right? I actually learned that concept from Tim Ferriss, where he's like, you got to find the domino that's going to tip over everything that's going to help. And through just like some self-work and journaling and thinking through things, the biggest thing for me was getting sober. Like that was the biggest thing. I was like, if I'm sober, then I get to think clearly. I knew I had this insecurity that like who I was only good enough with the drugs that I was at. So I was like, if I can be a person who I respect and is capable without drugs, like that to me is going to be huge. So I was like, I got to get sober. So I literally opened up Google. I swear, like this is my thought process. I type in how to get sober. That was it. I was like that. Like some people are like, I go to AA or like, you know, rehab. I was like, no. I went to Google. And so doing like my Google searches and everything. And one common element that I saw across everything was exercise, like exercise and physical movement. And in my head, I'm like, I think back to all those times in high school where I was like picked on and for being unathletic. I was like, oh God, I can't do that. I was like, okay, I can't go to the gym because if I go to the gym, I'm going to look weird weightlifting and people are going to make fun of me. So it's like, all right, well, what else can I do? I was like, okay, well, I can get a pair of running shoes and then I can run outside early in the morning when no one's awake and no one can see me and it's free. And I was like, all right, like, let's just give it a shot. And so I was like, okay. So I went to the store, I bought some running shoes. I was like, tomorrow I'm going to go and run 1 mile. I'm going to run 1 mile tomorrow.
Wow. What year is this, Joe?
This is 2018. So 2018. I had never ran more than a mile before this, by the way, never in my life. And I was like, I'm going to run 1 mile. I remember I woke up in the morning, it was 4 a.m. I was like, it's dark outside. No one's going to see me.
Are you
I'm
in New York
pumped.
at this time?
I'm in New York. Yeah. Okay. Westchester County. So, you know, a county that's about like, where I was at was about like an hour north of New York City.
Okay.
So I was like, no one's going to see me. It's going to be great. I was amped and I was like, today's the day my life changes. Like, let's go put on my shoes, get out there. I'm like doing my stretches and stuff. I was like, all right, here we go. Put on some music, like click on the watch. And I'm like, all right, it's time to go. And I start running. And I'm like running, feeling good. And all of a sudden, I'm breathing really heavy. My legs are hurting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to die. I was like, all right, I think I'm close to a mile though. I looked down at my watch and it says 0.15. And I was like, oh my gosh. I make it to a quarter of a mile. I have my hands on my knees. I'm gasping for air. And I was like, oh, I stink. Like this is never going to work. And I walked back, didn't even complete the mile. And I was like, dude, you're a failure. You said you were going to change and you didn't change and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and I was just beating myself up and I was like, yep, this is never going to work and everything too. But, you know, as I started to get back into those books and everything, like one thing that Tony kept saying, one thing that a lot of other people kept saying was that you just have to keep working at it. You have to keep being consistent. You got to believe that it's going to get better and you have to celebrate the small wins along the way. And one thing that Tony said that really, and I know I keep putting to Tony, but he was like very influential in my life. And I'm not saying like you have to listen to Tony, like just find influential leaders that can help you. But one thing that he said that totally impacted me, and I think it's so true this day, most people greatly overestimate what they can do in a year. They underestimate what they can do in 10. And that deeply sat with me because it was like, okay, that means that I can't expect to like do this all in one day. And I ran a quarter of a mile, which I hadn't even run that far like in years. I was like, all right, like maybe there's something to it. And I said, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to try for farther the next day. And the next day, I think I got to 0.27. And then I started building up and eventually got to that mile. And I was like, whoa, like, this is awesome. Like, this is so rad. Like, I'm running a mile now. Like, this is amazing. And that clicked something in me. It was like, dude, you couldn't run a mile on day one and now you can. So there's something to showing up each day, making small wins and small progress, not letting the failure and the disappointment you hold you back, that it's going to make you progress. And that's when I was like, okay, I think I can do this with drugs. And so I took less and less Adderall each day. I was still drinking, but I did less and less and less each day, and just weaned it off it very, very slowly. And that was kind of the whole process that, kind of started to lead it to. And, during that process, I signed up for my first 5K as well too, because I was like, I'm going to keep going, keep reaching this stuff. And it was a Spartan race actually. So it was obstacles. It was in Killington, Vermont. So tons of hills and stuff. And I remember I ran that 5K and I did it sober. Like I said, you know what, today, like, cause I was taking Adderall every day. I was drinking a little bit every day, but I was like, I'm going to do this thing sober. And I went out and I ran the 5K, and it crushed me, man. Like, I mean, I could barely even walk. Like, I was bartending at the time too, which funny, bartending, trying to get sober, like, go figure. Not a great move. I don't suggest that.
Yeah, that probably wasn't on Google.
No, that was not on Google. That was a bad decision. But anyways, I remember like being sent home that day because like my boss was like, you're walking like really weird and you're kind of freaking out the guests. So like you should go home. So I was like, okay. But there was something so awesome about that. Like, even though I was in all this pain, that pain was a signal of like, you pushed yourself, and like that hurt and that sucked. And like that really, really just was a tough thing, but you did it and you made it through, and you feel so good about that. And that got me thinking. I was like, well, it's the same journey with sobriety. Like every time where I would wean off the Adderall that I would take, it would be harder and harder and harder each day. And then, that each win where I would take a little bit less would feel all the more just empowering. And then fast forward that until I ran the 5K in September. In December later that year, that was the last day I'd ever taken drugs. And I think the thing that like really helped me a ton was realizing that once you stack up the wins in your life, you can have confidence to keep going on the big thing. So at that time, from September to December, I ran my first 10K, and then I ran my first half marathon, and I kept going on to there. And every time I broke through those races, I realized I'm getting better and better and better. And all it took was for me to be more resilient and me to be more self-trusting in myself, to the point where after I ran that half marathon, I realized I was like, okay, like it's time. And actually, funny enough, like, I ended up going to like a Tony Robbins, seminar. And literally the day after the seminar is when I took my pills, flushed them down the toilet. And that was the last day. That was the first day I was sober. And ever since then, years later, since 2019, that was the day.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
Praise God, man. I mean, that's an incredible story. Like, that is unbelievable. One of the dominant elements that I feel like stands out to me that I think is applicable to anyone trying to engage with growth or life change is just the role and presence of belief. Can you speak to how important belief is if you're trying to change something in your life?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think belief is everything, because even if, like, I think belief is the governor to however much your potential is ever going to show up. And here's the reason why I say this. And I'll link it to running, because I see this a lot in runners a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So I was chatting with an athlete today who's going for a 100-mile race. And he was talking to me and he was like, well, mentally, I feel like in these races, I know I can do it. I believe I can do that. And even just looking at his training, I mean, he crushed his training. His workouts were great. His stuff was awesome. Like all the physical signs point to, him getting this too. And even in the past, before we started working together, all the signs, like when I look into his races that he would go for this 100 miles, I was like, yes, he should be able to go and nail this. But before we started working together, he would have races and he would just not finish them over and over again, even though his training was great and everything. So comes to me and, he's like, hey, like I can't finish these races. And I'm looking at his training and I'm like, your training's good, man. Like, you're hitting the workouts, you're hitting all this stuff. Like, talk to me about what happens at the race. He's like, anytime I get to mile 60, for some reason, like my mind says I can't go that much farther. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't know. My mind just says like after mile 60, like I just can't do it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, what happens? He's like, well, it tells me all the reasons I can't. It brings up all the times in the past where I've failed at mile 60. And then I say, you know what? Like, it must be right. So I stop. And then that's a perfect example where it doesn't matter how much you do the steps, doesn't matter how much you do the actions, your beliefs will always be the final determinant of your results in life all the time. So you will only rise to the level of your belief. That's it. Because the belief will be like a central governor, right? It's like an air conditioning. I always say, like, if you believe that you're a 65-degree person and you're crushing it and you're at 67 degrees, all of a sudden your internal system's like, no, you're a 65-degree person. It's going to cool you down a little bit. That's why self-sabotage happens. That's why when some people get big opportunities, they end up like screwing things up and they're like, what? I'm so on the ball. Like, why am I not screwing up? Maybe you believe that you're not deserving of that success. Maybe you believe that you don't believe that you're like deserving of this opportunity, right? Whereas like for some people from a belief standpoint too, it can work the other way. Let's just say you're at 62 degrees. You're like, no, I'm a 65-degree person. And then you just start like ripping and crushing it and just getting it on. If you believe that you're worth more and right now that, you know, maybe you're in a position where you're much lesser, that's going to kickstart you into action to get that thing done. And so belief is the whole thing. And it's not even just beliefs about you, it's beliefs about yourself, it's beliefs about other people, it's beliefs about the world. Like all that stuff is the lens of how we look at things, right? Another example that I always like to say all the time is that, you know, think about it like this with belief, right? Let's just say there's two people who are going on an airplane and there's one person who flies all the time and they're like, oh, turbulence is normal. There's one person who never flies because they're so afraid of flying. And they're on the plane, they're sitting there, and all of a sudden the captain goes, all right, everybody, buckle your seatbelts, we got some turbulence coming in. And all of a sudden there's a big boom, just like a turbulence. Now, the one person who flies all the time is like, no big deal, it happens all the time. The other person's like, oh my gosh, like what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Now, here's the thing why belief matters. That bump was the same exact bump for both people. The only thing that's different, what's different? Their belief of what that bump means. So your belief is gonna shape how you view challenges. It's going to shape how you view failure. It's going to shape how you view your actions. It's going to shape everything. So you change your beliefs, you change your life. Right? You see failures as opportunities. Oh my gosh, you're set up for success. You see difficulty and pain as something that's going to propel you forward. You're going to push yourself beyond beliefs. But if you see failure as something that's going to limit you and hold you back, you're never going to take the shot and you're going to stay where you're at. If you see pain as something that's going to be very uncomfortable and you want to avoid, you're never going to reach your full potential because you're never going to push yourself. And so like, I think belief is like the biggest thing. And if you keep finding those roadblocks in life, sometimes it's not even just changing your actions, it's changing your beliefs and what they mean and reshaping those.
Man, that's so good. And I love talking to you about these subjects because you've got such a wealth of personal growth experience, but you can also look at it from the business angle too. And so many ways, I feel like personal growth is just a microcosm of business growth as well.
Yeah.
And we're spending a lot of time within our community of impact-driven leaders right now talking about the 4 stages of business. So we think of it as founder, operator, CEO, owner. And in so many ways, I think one of the caps or limiting lids for people going from operator to CEO is that they can't see themselves as a CEO. And I don't think that's all that different from someone being able to see themselves run a 100-mile race in some ways.
100%. And like, I think that's 100% right in the head. Like even from a standpoint of like, when I started Everyday Ultra Coaching, like I was the coach and I was a person on there. And similar example to you, like where now I'm in a role where I'm kind of moving more into like that CEO role and we have coaches under us. Like I had to shift my belief to say like, hey, like I'm a business owner, like not just a coach, right? Because at times I think like the things that people can limit themselves with, and I'm friends with a lot of running coaches, is they're like, oh, I'm a coach. Like I can never run like a big business or anything of that such too. And I'm like, that's your belief. Like that's your belief right there. And I was like, and I always ask this question to even my athletes too. I'm like, what if you believed that you can go out and run 100 miles? Could you do it? And they're like, absolutely. And I'm like, well, why not? Like, why don't you believe? Now, obviously it's like beliefs are really tricky. The reason why they're so tricky is they're so hard to unravel.
Oh yeah, they're deeply ingrained.
Yeah, especially like there's like low level beliefs like, oh, can I run this 100 miler or not? But usually there's a deeper belief that kind of feeds all that. And it takes a lot of time and work and doing that. But here's the thing. It's like when you act in a way that totally negates that negative belief, the more times you do that, the less that negative belief has power over you.
Man.
So that's why I kept ultra running. Like that. Everyone asks me all the time, like, why did you go from half marathon to 250? Is because literally the whole process of that is just from the standpoint of like, keep feeding the belief that I can keep going and do more. Now, not from a standpoint of like, I think there's the unhealthy version of that of like, you're always reaching for more no matter what.
Yeah.
But like, to me, it's like always asking like, how can I be better to keep showing myself that if I can do the work and be better, then that's going to help me to, you know, always have that belief of, if I'm at a place where I'm not at right now, I can get there. And that to me, like, I think anytime you speak with people who have depression, I don't want to like total self-generalize, but like a lot of the times like where people feel hopeless or stuck, let's just put it that way to make it a little bit more milder. If you ask them, they're like, well, what's the point? There is no way out. And it's like, if you believe that there's a way out and you believe that you can do something to get out of that, that always is hope. Like in an ultra marathon, there's a quote that I always like to say for people all the time. It never always gets worse. Because, so I'll give you an example. When I was in Coconut 250 miles. You start in Phoenix, Arizona, and you go all the way to Flagstaff. Very, very long way. And so,
I mean, you clarified that it was a long way when you said 250 miles, but thank you for elaborating.
Yeah, exactly. But I was at mile 190. And so there's 60 miles left to go.
Yeah.
And I'm broken. Like my feet hurt so bad. I got blisters up the wazoo. I'm like crying 1 second, and then I'm laughing 1 second, and then I'm angry 1 second because I've only slept an hour at this point. So like my mind's all over the place. I'm walking at a snail's pace. I can barely keep my eyes open. And I'm like, there's 60 miles left to go. And the knee-jerk thought that comes into mind is like, whoa, 60 miles left to go and you're this bad? Man, you might as well stop because it's going to get worse and worse. And that's logical, right? Because it's like, if it's going to get worse, like, why do I keep going? But then you have to hold on to this belief that it will get better. It will get better. And I'm going to do whatever I can to help to make this better, whether that's move forward, whether that's eat, whether that's take care of myself. And if you always believe that it will get better and you believe in yourself to make it through those tough challenges, you will keep going. Right. And listen, it might, at this point, I don't think it got better until like mile 240. So it took a while.
Yeah, it took a while to get better.
But it was the belief that kept me going, not the fact that I felt good or not. And so your feelings don't matter as much when you have the belief that you can get through it and you can make it through it and it will get better. And sometimes the thing that it will get better is you. Right? If you just wait for things to get better, like you're at the whims of life and that stinks. But if you always believe that you have this control, internal, like locus of control that you can make the situation better, it's great. And even if you can't control the things around you, you know what? You can change your mindset. Someone told me a quote once, like if you can control the situation, take the action to change it and make yourself in a better situation. And if you can't control anything, change your mindset. And if you change your mindset, you'll be in a stronger place too.
Man, there's something in what you just said that I think I have never thought about in this way, but you were talking about how you look at other coaches in the space of running and they view themselves basically as, well, the most that I could ever do is individually coach athletes. I could never do more than that. That's a limiting belief that keeps them from ever being able to do more. What's wild about those people is like, those people are ultra runners. Theoretically, belief is like something that they are strong at in the field of running, but that doesn't mean necessarily that it transfers into the realm of business. I think a lot of the leaders that we work with, a lot of times their strength is they've got belief for their business. They've got belief in their even their leadership capacity, but maybe that belief doesn't transfer to their physical health, to their marriage, to their ability to parent well, to their ability to have a life outside of their business or have a great community of friends or something like that. I guess the thing that I'm observing is that just because belief is a strength in one area doesn't necessarily guarantee that it transfers to other areas. I guess I would like to know, is there anything that you've learned about transferring, like, man, here's what I've learned in terms of belief being a strength in this area and how it can impact my life in other areas?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I love this because obviously I work with a lot of ultra runners and ultra running takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of training. And most of the people we work with have full-time jobs, families. Some of them run businesses. Some of them are high, executives at companies. And I always tell people this all the time is, if you have other priorities in your life that you cherish and you love and you want to have a lot of great success in, whether that's family, anything else, right? Job, whatever, you name it on there too. I always say, like, number one, take the lessons that you learned from ultra running and apply it to that. And number two, like, you're not here to be a better ultra runner. You're here to be better in those areas as well too. Because like I always say with ultra running, for me, it was not a standpoint of being a better runner or running for how much. Like, I did it to get sober, to be a better person. And now that I am sober, it's like it's teaching me tools how to be better in other areas. And so the way that, number one, I always suggest to answer your question of like, how do you take something that you're good at one area and applying it to other? I think, especially with something like running's a really good example of it. We can see running as just like this silo kind of like away from our life. And we can just see life in silos, right? We see life in different buckets, right? We have our career bucket, we have our family bucket, we have our running bucket and all those kind of things too. And we can see them as separate. But here's the reality. Like, we're a holistic person. And if we can show up in one way super strong, we can do that in another way. And I learned that with running, because the thing that helped me a ton was doing things like going from 5K to 10K to half marathon from a base of never really running more than a mile before. And so in my standpoint, I was like, whoa, if I can do that standpoint of never being able to run again to running a freaking half marathon, then I can go from a place of not being able to function at all with Adderall to functioning literally sober off of anything too. And so success leaves clues in your own life in other areas. So like, if you know that you can keep pushing yourself, and let's just say, you know, you want to grow your family, and right now you have the belief of like, I don't know if I can be a person who can, you know, raise a good family with 2 kids. Like, that's your belief. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why do you believe that? And you know, why you believe that's a whole different other story, and you want to get to the root cause of that. But like, my whole standpoint is like, listen, like, if you like signed up and you ran like 100 miles off of a place of never running 100 miles before, who's to say that you can't be a parent of 2 kids, right? The biggest thing that I see all the time is that people come to me and they're like, well, I can never train for 100 miles because I have 3 kids, I have a full-time job, like I have all this stuff too. And what I do first and foremost all the time is I go, well, first of all, like, you have to make the decision that this is something that you want to go out and try at first. Because right now, like, I think the limiting belief, like, takes that decision off the table. Yeah. So I think, like, number one, you have to be open to the new belief, right? It's like, oh, I'm open to it if this is possible. Yeah. Because if you're not open to it and you have this belief, like, everything gets shut down, right? It's all the time, like, and I'm not going to like talk about specific sides, but with politics, the reason why, like, politics, you can never convince someone of a certain party to believe the other parties, because that's a firm, deeply belief in them. It's a firm rooted belief. They're not open to other things too. So you have to be open to changing the belief. That's the first thing. The second thing that I do is say, hey, I've worked with this client, and this is a real client. She's amazing. Her name's Erica. She's awesome. She had 2 young girls. She just had another young girl, and she ran 100 miles. She was working all at the same time too, and she ran a 100-mile race and never missed a workout. 2 young girls, full-time job, and she did. And I have countless other stories of that. And so again, going back to what I said before, one way to shift your beliefs, look at other people who are doing in the same situation and know that it's a human thing, not a them thing. It's a human thing. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is give it a try. So this is a very big point. I use that language very intentionally. I don't say go out and do it, because a lot of the times, like, we don't even try because we think that it's not going to fail. Again, belief wise. So I always say, like, hey, like, listen, like, let's just give it a try for like a month or 2. If it goes well, awesome. And more times than not, it ends up going well because, like, we ended up training them the right way. But then they see that and they're like, oh, this is possible. Okay, like, this is amazing. And a lot of the times, if you just say, okay, let me just give it a try for 2 months instead of committing to a whole training block, like, you're going to do it, right? Yeah. So you just kind of take it one step at a time and don't make a judgment on how it's going to go, like, right off the bat. Just give it a try, give it a shot, and let's just see what happens. So I think
there's a gold mine in that you tell people give it a try for something like trying 100-mile race, a training plan for a 100-mile race. And the fact that you say more times than not, it works. I just think that speaks so much to how much we cap ourselves in terms of what we're capable of.
Yes.
That more often than not, people are capable of the thing that they literally thought was impossible.
100%. And even from that thing too, it's a lot of things that cap is people just don't even take the first step.
Yeah.
They don't even take the first step. Like, I always tell people in the middle of the race, like, I've seen people in horrible shape in these races at mile 75 and they have 25 miles left to go. Their feet are destroyed. Their stomach's jacked up. They're super tired. Like, whatever. Like, they've just gone through like the gauntlet out there, right? And they got 25 miles left. It's pitch black out there and everything. And they're like, I don't know if I can do it. And I remember this exactly. I was volunteering at a race. It was a 100-mile race. And there's a guy in this exact situation. That's why I bring it up. I'll never forget it. And he's sitting there and he's like, I can't do it. And I was like, why can't you do it? He's like, I got all this stuff. And I was like, all right, well, listen, how about this? Like, you can drop from the race if you want. You can drop. But guess what? You can't drop at this aid station. Just give it a try. Go to the next aid station. And if you want to drop there, go ahead. I was like, I'll see you at the next aid station. So he goes out and he goes and does it and comes to the next aid station. He's like, I'm going to keep going. And I was like, why are you going to keep going? He's like, because I showed that I can keep going, like, just by going out and doing it. So I didn't tell him finish the race. I didn't tell him go for the rest of 25 miles. I said, just go 7 miles out and just give it a try and see what happens. And a lot of the times we rob ourselves of that little opportunity. So that's why I always tell people in ultra marathons, right? It's like, don't focus on 100 miles, focus on getting to the next aid station. If that's too far, focus on getting to the next mile. If that's too far, heck, I've had some races where my legs hurt so bad, I'm just like, I'm just going to get to that tree and that's all I'm going to focus on. And then once you finally get to the tree, you're like, oh, I made it to the tree. Let's make it to that bush now. And you just keep having these little micro wins. And that's all you got to focus on. And when you focus on that, then you realize after all those little trees that you celebrated the victories on, gone 100 miles.
Yeah.
And you believe that you couldn't go the 100 miles. So you don't even have to think about the big thing. Just think about what is the smallest one you can do. Give it a try. If it works, amazing. If it doesn't work, guess what? You learned, right? Like, I think a lot of the times the biggest reasons why people don't get the opportunities in life is because they just don't at least take the first step. And that's the biggest thing.
I think I just finally pieced together how you are a person that can run 250 miles is you run to the next tree, but you live in Arizona, so there's never any trees.
There's never any trees, yes. It's like the trees at the finish line and even beyond.
It's like you only get 4 trees.
Just
you get
go right to the finish line and be like, hey, I haven't seen a tree yet, so I'm just going to keep going.
That's exactly right. Okay, so it feels like a pretty big gap in a very small amount of time from 13 miles, half marathon. Joe, it's why I love talking to you on this subject because you're not exaggerating when you're saying it was a huge deal to run a half marathon. Like that was a massive deal for you. What is the process of going from that to competing? Not even just running and finishing, but competing in 50, 100 mile, 250 mile. You've even ran a 300 mile race.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And that's the competition kind of part of it came from, again, like why I got so fulfilled with a half marathon, which by the way, I do want to say something on here because I think this is so important because I hear all the time people come up to me, they're like, I'm training for my first half marathon. But to you, Joe, like that, I know it's nothing. Like, I know it's nothing. And I'm like, no. Like, don't say that. You doing a half marathon for the first time is way more impressive than me doing 100 miles. And they look at me like, why? What do you mean? And I say, well, because for you, you're doing something you've never done in your life before, right? Think about a baby all the time, right? You obviously you have little.
I think
Lily
about a
too,
baby
right?
all the time.
You think about a baby all the time, right?
Out, yeah.
So think about with Lily, right? Lily takes her first step. Like everybody walks every single day. Are we going to look at that first step and be like, oh my gosh, like she's just walking, whatever? No, we're going to be like, yeah, you did it, Lily. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Do you know why? That baby has never taken a step before. And that is an amazing thing that we celebrate. And so people all the time, it can be so easy to compare where you're at in your journey, not just with running, with business, with life and everything, and be like, oh, well, I can't celebrate this because X and Y and Z is doing something better all the time. And I always say this, I'm like, hey, you doing something, even if it's a shorter distance, if that's the first time in your life you've done that thing, that is infinitely harder than someone who's running their 700 miler all the time. And so anyways, I want to preface that first and foremost.
Well, it goes back to what you said at the beginning. I'm trying to think of a time where I saw someone take on a physical challenge in their life, whether it's running their first ever 5K or do their first ever half marathon or do their first full marathon, right? Or something entirely different than all those things. I'm trying to think of a single example of where I saw someone do that and it wasn't a net positive for them. Like not just net positive for them physically, but net positive for their life. And I don't know that I can think of a single example. It's just wild how something about physical growth has massive ramifications for every other area of our life.
100%, because we gain that confidence. And that's why I think running is so great. I'm not saying that everybody has to run because you don't, but like running is so awesome because it really just breaks things down to its most simplest form. Because to ask your question, how did I go from 13 to competing? Well, really the simplest thing was, number one, I just learned how to train better. And number two was I just like applied the work. And why I say running is so simple is because it really is. It's just a matter of just like putting one foot in front of the other. Oh, sure, there's like some workouts you can do and some speed stuff and like how you structure the training. Like, great, there's all that stuff. But if you really break down running, all it is just putting one foot in front of the other. That's it. And so a lot of times in life, it can be a little bit more complex. There's like complex relationships and a lot of if-then statements and a lot of different like other kind of branches that can come in, especially with business, right? Like business is a multi-variable game. But there's only one thing for certain in ultra marathons. If you keep going, you will probably finish. Like, that's it. That's all it is. And honestly, that's life too. Like, one of the best quotes I've ever heard was from Alex Hormozy, who I know we were talking about before too. And I know some people have some like different opinions about him, but this is a great quote and it's simple, but it's so powerful. if you don't stop, you'll never lose.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, so good. It's so good. Because what running taught me is like, if you just keep going and like, you know, to go to the competition thing too. Like, I mean, the biggest thing for me was, again, just keep showing up day after day after day after day after day. And kind of where the competition thing kind of came in for me was, you know, at this time, I was training for my first 100-mile race. And while I was doing that first 100-mile race, I like everyone asked me like, oh, like, are you scared of not finishing? I was like, no, like, I'm going to finish. Like, I know I'm going to finish. Like, I know I'm going to do really, like, I know this. And that kind of clicked something in me. I was like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, let's go back and let's look at why this process of running was so fulfilling for you. When I signed up for my first 10K, I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it. And to make even things crazier, there was like a nor'easter on that day. It was like a huge storm. I hate the cold. Like I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I felt like there was a chance of me dying at that race. Not true. But like, I was literally like, oh my God. And when I did the first half marathon, I was like, oh my gosh. And when I did my first 50K, I was like, oh my gosh. And like all those things kind of like,
what is the, oh my gosh? Is it fear for you of not finishing? Is it fear of dying or getting hurt? Like what is the blocker for you?
So I wouldn't say it's a blocker, but I think that any goal that's worth setting has a little bit of a chance of failure in it.
Okay. And is that what you're scared of?
I wouldn't say it's scared, but it's more of like, the uncertainty that you're going to do the thing. Mm-hmm. I think there's got to be a little bit of that in any goal in order for it to be worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Is there, and maybe it's not fear, is there any timidity of, let's just take a 300-mile race for the first time. Is there any timidity of, maybe there's the anxiety of, I might not be able to do it. But there also could be the anxiety of, if you're a high achieving, ambitious person, what if I do it? And what are the implications of that in terms of what I had to give up to get there, the impact that it had on my relationships, the impact that it had on my body, things like that. Because that's something that I think everyone wrestles with in every arena of life is not just fear of failure, but also fear of success in some ways.
Oh, for sure. Right. I mean, like, and that's like one reason. I mean, I see this all the time. They call it the Iron Man widow, right? They use Iron Man, but not ultramarathons, but I think it applies well. Which like,
that's so sad.
Yeah. And that's like an actual widely used term for people who just are training all the time and their wives are at home or their husbands, whoever, like is just not seeing their partner all the time. And first of all, I'm very disagreeing with that. Like, I think unless like that's a conscious decision on your end and you're like, hey, my wife's okay with it. She's ready. Like, cause I have some athletes that are like, hey, like, listen, like my wife wants me to do what I pursue, like whatever. If that's your conscious choice, great. But if you're someone who's like, I want to have a family, I want to be there for my kids and everything like that too. Like, number one, I think you can make it work. I think you can train for
an that's a belief thing too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's a belief thing.
Someone once told me whenever I was doing Ironmans, they told me Ironman, career, family, choose two. And it's like, that is, and they were serious, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that is a belief system that if you believe that's how it works, you will follow that belief system and say, 100%. Well, this is the way the world works. So if I want to do Ironman, I have to say no to something else.
100%. And you can do all like, right. So like we talked about Russell Brunson before. Like I look at Russell Brunson, like he's crushing it in business. He's crushing it with his family. He's very, very faith-driven man. Like he's very, very into his church and service and stuff like that. And I love that. And it's like you asked me before, like who's a person? I see like that because he is seeing what's important in life and doing it all to the max. Now, I think the biggest thing with the fear of success and all that stuff in general is like, you do have to pick things that you prioritize the most. Like another Ray Dalio quote that haunts me in my sleep, but it's so true. You can do anything you want, but you can't do everything.
Yeah.
And now again, like it kind of goes back to the thing, well, doesn't that like challenge belief? It's like, no, like you got to list out the things that you really are important in life. So for you, like you're like, okay, training's important, family's important, career's important, but maybe like, you know, going out and partying or socializing as much, like maybe that's something that's not as important to me. Okay, great. Or like maybe doing things like other personal hobbies like golfing or something like that. Like if you really like running more, like you might have to pick those priorities. But I think it comes from a standpoint of number one, prioritizing the things in your life. And number two, like being the best at those single priorities. Cause like, I'll give you an example. Like for me, I run a business. I train really hard. I have a wife. I now have a dog. And like
in the past month, you have a dog.
Yeah, past month I have a dog and stuff like that too. And you know, for me, I stay in touch socially with people and stuff like that too. But like, I really want to do those things. And like right now at this season of my life, I do hang out with friends here and there too, but it's not as much of a bigger priority. Now, again, like some people might think about it, like, oh my God, like that's terrible. If that's like the thing that you want, like great, that's awesome. Like I'm not saying that you have to live like me, but it's like define what your priorities are. There's some people who are like, I would never want kids because like, I just want to focus on like me. great. Like, listen, I want to have kids one day.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that philosophy for me, but whatever is important to you, like find the things that are important and maximize those all. And if you're afraid of like all the sacrifices to give it, instead of being afraid of that, being like, how can I make this work?
Yeah.
It's not, I cannot make this work. It's how can I make this work?
Can you speak to, because you were already competing in ultras prior to getting married to Lexi.
Yeah.
Then you get married to Lexi. How does that change the way that you approach planning out running and planning training schedules, the way you approach your business, all of that?
Yeah, 100%. And then even just to really quickly answer the question, I know I rounded about a lot, but I decided to compete in these ultras because for my first 100 miler, I knew I was going to do it. And to go back to that thing, I truly believe any goal in life is worth like a little bit of failure. And so for me, I was like, I want to push myself to the point to compete in these things, because that was the thing where it's like, there's an element of failure where it's like, I went to the start line of the 100-mile race, and I'm not saying this out of arrogance. It was just like, I know I'm going to finish this. And to me, I was missing that element of potentially failing. Whereas I knew if I went out to compete against some of the best athletes in the world, there was a big chance of failure in that too. But I was like, you know what? Like, I want to go for that, because like for me, like having that element that it is not 100% guaranteed, I think makes the goals all the more worth it. Because when you complete a goal that has a 20% success rate versus a 100% success rate, what are you going to get more excited about?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a shift in the conversation then, because of what you just said. I think I read you've done 20 plus ultra marathons now, right? You started in 2018. So it's not like you gradually worked your way up. Like you got there pretty quickly. I think you've DNF'd one.
Yep.
Right? What was that experience like?
Yeah. So this is we have a documentary on this called Broken at 300.
It's exceptional.
Thank you.
We'll put the link in the show notes because it's so good. And I feel like it's a visual representation of all the principles you're talking about.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But yeah, so that was the Arizona Monster 300 miler. It's 300 miles, the first year doing the race. And I went to that race. I was like, I want to win this thing. Like I had never wanted to win a race more in my life. And like, I want to win. And I put in the best training block in my entire life. Now, was there a chance that I wasn't going to win? 100%. There was totally a chance. And I knew that, like, I was like, no matter what, I'm going to finish this thing. Like, no matter what. And so I ended up going for it. And I put the best training block of my life. I was so confident on that start line. And in the middle of the race, like, yeah, I went through like your usual kind of trials and tribulations and a lot of highs and lows and all the things you get in an ultra marathon. And this doesn't spoil the true ending of the doc, because there is another ending of the doc. But like, I do end up not finishing the race because my knee exploded out there and basically got so swollen I couldn't even walk on it. And I had to be carried out of the thing. I was on crutches the next day, but I only made it 200 miles out of 300. Now, I look at that as the best thing that's happened to me in my ultra running career. At the time I didn't. I was crying. I was so upset. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. That's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Two different reasons. Number one, I'm so proud of myself for going for it. I always think about that Teddy Roosevelt quote, right? It's always about the man in the arena, not the critic. It's not the critic who counts. It's about the person who's in there, whose face is marred by sweat, blood, and dust, and the person who's actually doing it, because the person who went for it is going to live a more fulfilling life than the person who sits there and doesn't even try at all. That's a paraphrase of the quote, but like that's essentially what it is. So I'm proud of myself for that. And then the second thing is, gosh, the biggest lesson I learned from that is, dude, you need to strength train more. I was like, the reason why your knee blew up is because my left hip was a little bit weaker than my right, just a tiny bit. But because I was running so hard for 200 miles, like, and that compensation ended up putting a lot of weight on my knee. It blew up and did it. And why did that happen? Because I wasn't strength training enough. Then I started strength training. I strength train like 3 to 4 times a week now. I'm totally on it. And I had one of the best races of my life after that too. And because of that, like, I was like, wow, if I didn't mess up that race, who knows how great I would have performed. So like, the reason why I think that's just so awesome is because even when you go for a goal, like I mentioned before, it's so fulfilling when you complete a goal that has a little bit of a chance of failure. But guess what? No, it's not a win-lose. It's a win-win. Because if you complete it, you did it. If you fail it, you get a lesson that is so information rich that is going to make you better in the future. So no matter what, you win-win. So why would you ever let failure stop you from making that step? Right? Because if you know that it's a game where no matter what you're winning, man, you better take those shots all the time. So anytime someone comes to me and it's like, oh, well, I'm afraid of failing on this goal. Like, now again, right? Like if, you're taking a business shot and it's a 1 to 99 chance and like you have an investment where the risk can be mitigated, take it.
Sure.
But from a standpoint of like, if you're just afraid of the failure and there is a shot that you can do it, don't let the failure hold you back, because no matter what, you're going to win. And I think that principle changed my life no matter what, because, and that goes back to the just try. right? Just try. Like,
Just give it a shot.
don't measure it on success. Measure it on, did you give it a shot?
Before we get to the final question, number one, I would tell people they should watch the documentary because it's so good. But how can people follow along with everything you and your team are doing, Joe?
Thank you so much. First of all, it's an amazing conversation, by the way. And if you're watching, keep listening to Path for Growth. I mean, I've listened to Path for Growth before we even were friends. Like, they're just so awesome. So it's like surreal to be here. So thank you. Yeah, I mean, we put out tons of free content on our podcast, Everyday Ultra. You can find wherever podcasts are at. And then on YouTube, we have an Everyday Ultra page. And, we have a lot of tips on like, not only just how to be a better ultra runner, but to be a better person. And so if running interests you, you'll find a lot of good content. If even just mindset interests you, we have some good content, but we're all about like giving as much value away for free. And because, we truly want to make people not only better runners, but better people. And so that's what we're here for.
So good, man. And I cannot speak enough to like the value that his company is bringing to. And so if you are looking to train for a race, I would say, man, check Everyday Ultra out, to say the least. And we'll put the links to all those things in the show notes. Okay, final question for you. I think it's almost possible that the jump from 0 miles to 1 mile might actually be harder than the jump from 1 mile to even 250 miles.
Yes.
Just that it's so hard to get out of the rut of I'm not doing anything to I'm doing something. And without a shadow of a doubt, we know now, enough people listen to this, that there's probably some people that listen to this that self-identify as like, I'm at that 0 mile stage. Like, I know something needs to change, but literally getting up and doing different things to get different results is the thing that they haven't yet found the energy to muster and do something new. If that person's sitting down with you and talking to you, what would you tell them?
Yes. Well, it kind of relates to the cold plunge that we went on right before this. So I told Alex, I hate getting wet and I hate cold water. And he's like,
I've met a lot of people that hate cold water. I've never met anyone that's literally like, I don't like getting wet.
No, I don't like getting wet. I don't know why. I really don't, but I don't like getting wet. But anyways, it's funny because I run and I sweat all the time. But all that being said, like, you said like, I have like my foot like about to go in and you're like, you just got to do it. And I was like, yep, you're right. You just got to do it. And so literally, I think the thing is, if you're at a place where it's just so hard to take that first step, know that number one, that first step is the hardest. And here's a practical piece of advice that honestly helped me so freaking much, was literally just count down to 5 in your head and then just do it. Now, this is attributed to Mel Robbins. I can't take credit for this. She's great. She has a thing. It's called the 5-second rule. And literally this is like, it sounds so simple, but it's so true. And there's a lot of science behind it that we don't have the time to go into too. But basically, if you just like, okay, I want to do this thing, and just go, all right, I want to count down to 5 and I'm just going to do it out loud. Just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just go. Like, there's times where I'm even sitting at my desk and I'm like, oh, because in business, there's some admin tasks that you don't want to do. And you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Like, God, I got to run payroll. Like, not to say I don't want to pay my people, but it's a tedious process. You got to input numbers. And
sure,
I like the creative stuff. So literally, like this morning when I was about to do like payroll, I was like, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go to the website, open, and just start. And once you start, you'll just keep going. Like, the hardest part is just getting the first thing done. And so the hardest part was me is putting on the shoes, getting out there, and you don't even have to focus on the next day. You don't have to focus on the day after. Just focus on today. To focus on that first step and just do that. Count down to 5, make it done. And that first step's the hardest. And once you do it, you go. Most of the times when I go out for a run, I will say maybe 90% of the time, I sit there, I look at my shoes, and I'm like, oh God, I really don't want to do this. I swear. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't believe that because you're a running coach. I'm like, no, like, honestly, like, left to my own demises, I'd probably be a lazy person on the couch just watching TV. I really would. But I understand. I'm like, okay, in order to get to where I need to be, I need to take this uncomfortable step. And you always got to ask yourself, what do you really want? There's what you want. Well, I wanted to sit and chill and just, kind of relax. But I really want to be the best version of myself. And all the times when you can ask that question, what do I really want? Then that first step just becomes easy, even when it's hard.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much.
Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. If you want more content like this, we've got some killer stuff planned. So make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. Let's go, let's go, let's go.